What's going on, everybody? Good afternoon. Game day is here, and kickoff is just a few hours away. So, obviously, our thoughts are on this upcoming Cardinals game pretty heavily, but I do want to take a look at something before we get there. This is something that I saw a couple days ago on X from Football Insights, great account, by the way. And I wanted to talk about it then, but I kept having other things that were more important. So I wasn't able to make this video and I wasn't able to get this video up yet. So I figured I'd just sit on it until the opportunity came by, and I figure now is a pretty good time. A few hours before this game, already did the pregame this morning. So Football Insights posted team coverage rates through week 3. So this is the first 3 games of the year. And it basically takes a look at how often each team sits in each type of coverage. And the main reason why I want to talk about this is not so much because of what the Seahawks are doing in terms of how they're deploying coverage, because I'm going to say it right now, interestingly enough, the Seahawks and the way they're deploying their coverage is actually pretty plain. And I'll tell you what I mean in a moment here. Please give me a like, subscribe, click the bell, become a channel member for $2 a month. Those are the best ways to support. So let's zoom in on just the data here. And basically what this does is it divides up every play that a defense has into man or zone. And then within man or zone, it divides things up into coverage types: cover 0, cover 1, cover 2 man, cover 2, cover 3, cover 4, cover 6. So basically, you can get an idea of which teams are running certain kinds of coverage the most often. And you can see where the extremes are. Like you can see the Vikings, they run cover 2 zone at one of the highest rates in the league. You can also see, like, for instance, the Broncos really like to run cover 1 man more than almost any other team in the league. And they run man in general way more than most other squads. So you can kind of learn tendencies from looking at this chart. And a lot of the time it has to do with the personnel that the team has and the coaching staff the team has. By the way, actually, if you look on the very right side here, you can also see EPA per dropback, which is also always an intriguing stat. But here's the thing, and this is the Seahawks column right here near the middle. Seahawks are right here. If you take a look at this data set, the lesson here, if there is anything to take away from this, the Seahawks are kind of doing everything at an approximately league average rate. They are one of the more unremarkable teams in their rates of utilizing certain coverage types. Like you can see they're in man about 17% of the time. So they've mostly been in zone, which is typical for the league. You can actually look and see most of these other teams are in man about 20% of the time approximately. Maybe a few teams are higher, but there are also some teams that are lower, like the Chargers are almost never in man. The Panthers are almost never in man. Vikings, this is a big change up from last year when they loved playing man. They've been in zone 87% of the time so far this year. So the Seahawks are in man about 17% of the time, which is pretty, I'd say maybe slightly below average overall, but basically in line with league averages. And if you look over here in zone, again, the only thing that really stands out is how often they're in cover 4. That has been something they do more than the average team so far this year. Let's talk about Sleeper for 60 seconds. See you guys soon. Before I go any further, I want to tell you a little bit about my friends over at Sleeper. If you're not using the Sleeper app this year for daily fantasy football, you are missing out. Take a look on the left side of your screen. Look at all the great stuff you can pick on over there. Let's put together an entry for this weekend. Here is mine. I've got Bijan Robinson scoring an anytime touchdown. Atlanta's offense is due for a breakout after last week's tremendous disappointment, scoring 0 points. I got Micah Parsons getting at least half a sack against the Cowboys. How is he not going to get a sack in that game? It's a revenge game for him. I got Rome Odunze with at least 59 receiving yards. He's feeling it right now. He's going up against the Raiders. Think he's going to do well. And I got DK Metcalf after 2 relatively slow games, getting at least 51 yards. Pittsburgh's having trouble running the ball. Time for DK to bust a big play or two. Get on over to Sleeper, put together your entry, you can get a $100 match on your first deposit with promo code SBN. Terms and conditions apply. Back to the video. Welcome back. So they're in cover 4 a little bit more than the average, and they're also in cover 6 more than the average. But other than that, everything else is just kind of like approximately near the league averages. So that's interesting in and of itself. It basically says the Seahawks are doing things at approximately league average rates. Things have been, I'm not saying things have been vanilla, but you're not seeing a lot of exotic stuff here. Like, look at a team like the Browns. They live in man cover 1. Look at a team like the Ravens. They live in man cover 1 a lot too. The Giants are doing it a ton. Like, there are teams on this list that are doing things at extraordinarily high rates. The Seahawks are not really one of those teams. They're just kind of keeping things relatively simple and straightforward. They mostly prefer the cover 3 with some cover 4. That's not really why I'm making this video, though. I'm not really making this video to draw attention to the fact that things have been so simple for the Seahawks so far. They're playing a very simple style of defense in terms of their coverage. And that is interesting on some level. I don't know if it's so interesting that it's worthy of a video. The interesting thing I want to see is how does this change over the next month or so? Because most of this season has been played without Devin Witherspoon. Pretty much the whole season has been played without Nick Emmanwori. And now part of the season has been played without Julian Love. So with those guys being out, the Seahawks have seemingly switched things up to run a pretty plain defense. And I'm interested to see when they get these players back, especially Emmanwori, who was such a big part of their plans this season to get a little more exotic. What now? What are you going to do then? When you get all your guys back and you have somebody like a Devin Witherspoon that can play man or zone at high levels, how are you going to mix it up? So I'm going to come back to this data set in like a month when obviously tonight we expect Witherspoon and Love to be back. Emmanwori will probably be back against the Buccaneers. So as we integrate those guys back in, I want to see how this changes. So earmark this in your mind. 17% man, about 83% zone, 28% cover 3, 24% cover 4. How is that going to be modified as we move through the rest of this season? How are these numbers going to change when we have the guys we expect to have? I think it makes a lot of sense that when you're down to, I know Josh Jobe is playing really good, but when you get down to Josh Jobe, when you're down to Darion Kendrick, when you're giving snaps to players like Ty Okada, not guys you were expecting to have out there, you keep things simple. But I don't believe that Mike McDonald wants to keep everything simple. So I'm very interested to see what happens next. All right, see you guys later. Let me know what you think. See you soon. Got a big game tonight, people. I know your minds are on it, but I wanted to talk about this for a bit because I do think it's pretty interesting. Go Hawks.